Yep. Good morning, everyone. So, yes. So, we are learning about the life cycle here. So, completely we learned difference how to work with function components. Another one is class components. So, how to deal with class components and function components, we detailedly learned about them. And in class component, one more concept we are learning is about life cycle hooks. So life cycle hooks. And in that, yesterday I explained the first level flow, how actually the request works. So all those diagrams I will upload today because we haven't completed that. So we just finished the first level understanding of. So in level one, what you saw is whenever client makes a request for a React application from browser, that request will come to web server. Web server have a processing pipeline and web server have a application pool. In that application pool, it will verify whether the requested application is available or not. If requested application is available, then it will take help of routing engine, verifying request and returning a response for the request is managed by a handler. We call HTTP handler. And routing engine, what it does, it will verify whether the requested path is available in the application to serve you or not. And from where it will verify? From the routing table. So we have a route table. From the route table, it will verify whether the requested path is available. If it is available, then application have to load it and application have to send that you as a response. That is the first level outline flow. Now, what we need to know is, so here how it works. That means how application loads your component when request is matching. That means somebody requested some login and the request is matching. When request is matching, how application loads our component and how it sends. Let's see how it is going to load the component and send. So let's see the second level here. In level 2, you need to understand how the process works. So in level 2, actually, what is the point? Generally, this is our React application. Yeah. So React application is actually having a page called, it is having a file index.js. You already know React application is having index.js. And it is having another page and the page is index.html. And every web application starts with index.html. And you are having some components pages, like you will have login.jsx, you have home.jsx, like that. some register.jsx. These are components. Related files are present. Now, first, what happens is still some more are there. Now, generally, client will make a request. So from the browser. So client uses a browser. So this is the client. So that is user. And this is browser. Generally, client makes a request from the browser. For example, the request is for login. That means you have your port number and slash, what is it? Login, like this. Later, we will see such routes and all. And before this, what will be there? So it will be like what? http:// right? Client request will come like this. So client will make a request from the browser like this. Now, one important point is, for example, you opened a browser. In the browser, you entered some address. That means you entered some address like www.someamazon.in. That address bar is a text box. Am I right? It is a text box. After you typed the address, when you hit enter key, then it will load that page in the browser. It will load that Amazon in the browser. That means while typing it will load, or after typing when you hit enter it will load. After typing, when we hit enter, it is going to load that page. Now, what is that event? You learned JavaScript, React, so many events you learned. You have click event, you have on change event, you have on blur event, on focus event. So in interviews at a higher level, in interviews at experience level, they ask which event is used by browser to load the page that you request from address bar. Because in address bar also you type something and hit enter. When you hit enter, it is loading. That means there is some event working. What is that event? Which event is used by browser to load a web page? So browser loads any web page browser loads on an event called DOM content loaded. That is an event. Every browser internally have one event called DOM content loaded. This event will fire up whenever you type some address in address bar and hit enter. And this event, what it will do? It will verify the requested path is valid or not. If the requested path is valid, then it will execute and it will get the response and it will load the response. So every web page that you open in a browser is a result of a event called DOM content loaded. Any technology, browser, we are talking about browser. You may have a Java application, .NET, PHP, Python, anything. A web page loads in browser by using an event called DOM content loaded. You can see that. Suppose see, let's open inspect. In the inspect, let's go to network. This network is to monitor what activities are being performed. Go to the network category. Now what you do, you enter some address www.what amazon.in and hit enter. That means it is going to load some content. It will take some time. And you see DOM content loaded is the event. That is the event. On that event, see this many requests happened. This much data is transferred. These many resources loaded. And it took total this much time to load. This is the event used by every browser. Whenever you request a web page loads on an event called DOM content loaded. So what happens now? The first thing is whenever you make a request, one event will fire up. So what is that event is? DOM content loaded. This is the event that fire up. This is the event used by browser. So browser uses an event called DOM content loaded. On this event, first what it will do, browser uses this event. Browser is going to use this event. Browser uses this event, and on that event, it will request this page. That means whenever you request a React application, first React application will respond with which page? Index. Because React is a single page application. Single page application, here how many HTML pages will be there? Only one HTML page will be there. And when you make a request for any React application, first it loads the index page. And remember, first it is not going to load this index.js. It will not load that index.js. First what it will do, it will load index.html. Actually, first what happens is this index.html will directly load into your browser. And what happens is it loads actually, I can say here loads static DOM. It loads the static DOM. It loads the static DOM, document object model. Any web page, remember when you are using a web page, HTML page, in that you may be using JavaScript, CSS, everything. First stage is loading your HTML and CSS. HTML and CSS simultaneously will process. That means HTML DOM and CSS OM. So CSS OM means CSS object model. In the beginning, I explained you HTML parsing. That means whenever you request a page, usually what happens is when you request a page, it is going to load this. This is the two basic process actually. This is the rendering path. What network is going to do is it is going to start your HTML and CSS simultaneously. And the HTML will generate a DOM and CSS will generate an object model. CSS also have an object model. And together these two render, create the layout and paint. That is the initial stage. That means first CSS and HTML are going to be presented. And when they are presented, that is static DOM. Static DOM means DOM is presented, but it is not responding. We have a button with styles. We have a drop down with styles, but they are not responding. Even you write some JavaScript, JavaScript will not load first. First, which one will load? HTML and CSS. That is called as static DOM. After loading the static DOM, generally that means static DOM ready. That means this is first. So static, this is static DOM is loaded. It loads the static DOM. After loading the static DOM, now browser, what it will do is it will load the index.js that is required for that index HTML. First, after loading HTML, then it will identify what JavaScript is needed for it. Is there any JavaScript file linked to it? Then second, it will load this index.js. That means next step, what happens is after loading the static DOM, then it is going to load this index.js. That means it loads this index.js. It is going to load that index.js. Now what is present in index.js? What is present in index.js? You saw that already. You know what is present in this index.js is this index.js is going to load two important things. What are those? It will load React core library, and it will load React DOM library. It is going to load two libraries first. What are those? The React core library and React DOM library. Because without that React will not work. React initially requires two libraries. Na? What are those? One is core, another one is DOM. React JS and React DOM.js. We designed in the beginning, we included the files manually, right? That means it is going to load these two libraries first. First, it is going to load React core and React DOM. After loading the libraries, now what happens is it will load. You know what it will load? What it will load? Are these two enough? No, we need one more. What is it? It loads Babel compiler. It loads the Babel compiler, because who is going to compile and process your requests? Means process your components and manage the components. That is done by what? Compiler. Now what this compiler, Babel is a compiler. This Babel compiler is going to load. It is going to load. So first index.html will load as it is. And you know that in index.html, if you remembered already, you know, we manually designed index.html contains a div with ID as root. Remember? That is a static one. That is a static one. That means it is the actual DOM actually, right? Now, first index is loaded. After that, its a static DOM is rendered. Output is created. But that output is not having React now. It will load index.js. Index.js will load the library. It will load the Babel. Now what Babel will do is, what Babel is going to do is, it is going to use a mechanism called, so Babel is going to use a mechanism called DI, dependency injection. Dependency injection. So that means it uses a mechanism called dependency injection, DI mechanism. It uses dependency injection. In dependency injection, actually, you know, dependency injection comprises of two components. Remember? What are those two components? One is provider. Another one is what? Injector. Am I right? We have a provider and injector. You learned about service. No? Service comprises of two things. What is it? One provider, another one is injector. What is the job of provider? The job of provider is to locate all the required values in memory. And after locating, loading them into the component. That is all the job of what? Injector. Locating the values in memory is done by provider, and injecting them into the component is done by injector. So what this Babel is going to do is, that means what this is going to do is actually, I need to extend a little bit. Yeah. So let me remove this part like this. Yeah. So what it is actually going to do is, this provider and injector, what they are going to do, they are going to identify and locate all the dependencies. That means what this is going to do is, it will locate and load all dependencies. It is going to locate and load all the dependencies. All the dependencies are located and loaded. They are located and loaded. It locates and loads all the dependencies. All the dependencies means what? Dependencies means you are using Formic, you are using Axios, you are using React cookies. All these are the dependent libraries. They are also to be loaded. React DOM is loaded, React is loaded, Babel is loaded, and all dependencies also need to load. You are using Formic, you are using Yup, you are using some React cookie, Bootstrap, all these dependencies need to be loaded. That means it is going to locate and load all the dependencies. After loading the dependencies, next step what happens is, after loading the dependencies, now what it is going to do is, so this is the final one here, it will load the component. That means in the dependencies, loads the component into memory. It loads that component that is requested by the client. Whatever the component is requested by the client, it loads it. That means it is going to load the component requested by client. This is the basic process how it works. So yeah. So that is loading the component that is requested by the client. That's what happens. So it is going to load that component here. That means first you make a request. The request will come to React app. React app will start with one page called index.html. Index.html will first render its actual static DOM. Any web page, even you are using Java.NET like also, they will, even you are using some server side logics and everything, first scripts, styles are loaded along with HTML. Scripts and other logics will be loaded second. That is the secondary part. So after loading, it loads all the needed compilers, it loads all the dependencies, and what it is going to do? So it is going to load the component. After loading the component, now this component will be rendered. That means this component is going to be rendered. It is going to be rendered. It is going to be, actually it is going to be rendered where? It is not directly rendered. So it is going to be rendered in a virtual DOM. That means it is going to render this in a virtual DOM. So it is going to create a virtual DOM. Virtual DOM is created. It is going to create a virtual DOM. And in the virtual DOM, it loads this component. The component is loaded into the virtual. After loading into virtual DOM, then from virtual DOM, you know that it is updated into which one? Actual DOM. So that it is updated into the actual DOM. it is updated into actual DOM. So from virtual DOM, it is updated into the actual DOM. Actual DOM. Updated into actual DOM. Dynamic DOM. The actual DOM is converted into dynamic DOM. That means this is transformed. The static DOM is converted into a dynamic DOM. Dynamic DOM is just having a presentation. Now it is going to respond. It is going to respond. And remember, when will the virtual DOM update the actual DOM? That means actual DOM will update into the browser. So virtual DOM is for the users, actual DOM is for the browser. Browser is going to update into the virtual DOM. In some interviews, they ask, what is the mechanism used to update the virtual DOM content into actual DOM? The virtual DOM content into actual DOM. When it will update, what is the mechanism it uses to update the virtual DOM into actual DOM? Generally, when it should update, update means what? If there are any changes, then only it should update. If actual DOM and virtual DOM are same, it is not going to update. When it is going to update, React is going to update the actual DOM when there are changes in the virtual DOM. What is the mechanism that it uses to verify whether there are changes or not? Whether they are changes or not. Generally, in technical terms, we call it as a diff mechanism. DIFF, diff mechanism. That means difference mechanism. Difference mechanism is nothing but actually, that means how it is going to update. It is going to update by using a mechanism called, we call it as diff mechanism. Mechanism. It uses a diff mechanism for updating. And what is this diff mechanism is nothing but diff mechanism uses a formula. It uses a formula, and the formula is very simple. The formula is here. So this is the actual value. That means this is the previous value. Previous value is equal to current value. That is the formula it uses. That means if previous value is equal to current value, then, and another point is previous value is not equal to current value. So what does it means if previous value is equal to current value? What does it means? No change. If previous value is equal to current value, then there is no change. Now, if previous value is not equal to current value, previous value is different, current value is different, then change detected. Change detected. The mechanism of verifying whether the previous DOM and the current DOM are both same. And if they are not same, then React is going to update the virtual DOM into actual. And this mechanism is called diff mechanism. That means difference mechanism. It is used in all technologies. Every technology in the world uses a diff mechanism to identify whether there are changes in the actual value and the current value. The previous value and current value. Everywhere this will be there. That means everywhere. Any software application using frameworks, like you are using frameworks like MVC, Spring MVC and all these things. ASP.NET MVC, anywhere MVC, microservices, all these are the frameworks. Whenever you are using these frameworks in an application, how a value is updated. how application knows that there is some change in the value. So because whenever a change occurred, then only it should update. If there is no change, it should not update. And how application knows there is a change? By using diff mechanism. It verifies the previous value is equal to current value. If previous value, current value both are same, there is no change. If previous value is not equal to current value, then there is change detected. So based on this mechanism, it is going to update the actual DOM, virtual DOM into actual. So if anyone asks in interview that what is the mechanism used to update virtual DOM into actual DOM, diff. This in the next level, I will show you, we can see this in a debugger. That means we can install some debuggers of React. Debugging React applications we will see with Redux-like concept. There you will see this architecturally also. Diagram you can see. You can see a diagram. Diagram means not DOM diagram. You can see the values diagram. That means what is previous value, what is current value, what change occurred. Previously, how many are there? Current, how many are there? This entire diff mechanism we can identify. We can see it practically. So later you will install such tool and we will use that mechanism. So this is second level. So first level is how request will come to React app, how React app will respond. That means that is higher level. Higher level means using a routing engine, it will verify the request and it is going to load. How it is going to load, that we saw here. That means how it is going to load, it is going to load by using this approach. So what is the order? So the request will come to index.html. In React.js, the first request loads index.html. Index.html is an ordinary HTML. It will initially load the static DOM on which event every page loads. Every page loads on an event called DOM content loaded. On that event, it is going to load. After loading the static DOM, immediately doesn't become a dynamic. After loading a static page, it will not become a dynamic page immediately. There is a lot of process happening in the background. Every technology that makes a static into dynamic, it have a lengthy process. First, it should load the library. It should load all the dependencies. It should load the compiler and then it loads the component. So once it is loaded and it is rendered into virtual DOM is updated into actual DOM and actual DOM becomes a dynamic DOM. And remember, the process of converting a static DOM into dynamic DOM, this process, that means the process of converting static DOM into dynamic DOM, we call this process as, this process is known as, that means bootstrapping. We call this as bootstrapping. Remember, bootstrap is different, bootstrapping is different. Bootstrapping is nothing but it is the process of, bootstrapping is the process of converting a static DOM is converted into which DOM? Dynamic DOM. What is the point? Static DOM means the DOM without any interactions. Dynamic DOM which handles the interactions, which manages the interactions. So what is bootstrapping in an application? That is one familiar question. Remember, this is all very experienced level because even you Google, you will not find these architectures. You will not find this. Even you Google about React Flow, right? You today search whatever time you take a search, you will not find this. You will not find this anywhere in the architecture. You will not find this anywhere on Google. You will not find this architecture. Why? Because the point is this, how we know this architecture. That means how we know that this is happening, because we have seen these libraries built So just before us. That means we have seen them building. That means we have seen these technologies constructing. We have seen this. That means we trained people on technologies, so which uses all this basic architecture, and we are training people on these kind of technologies before React was born. Right before React Angular like technology is born, we know these kind of technologies, and we know that these communities have built the technology in this way. We have, because you are in the modern React. When early days of introduction of React and Angular, they use this complete infrastructure in the same way. Now they are hiding it. They are hiding it. Is not completely visible to everyone. Only outline, only you can see what is happening. Only the output you can see. So any expert who have seen these technologies evolving, he knows this infrastructure. He knows that, because generally we used to build an application in the same order. Now you have done npx create React app. What it has done, it has built an app for you, set the infrastructure, everything for you. Actually, we created that manually earlier. Manually, we don't have tools. We don't have tools. That means manually. I showed you manually also. No? Manually, I showed you we add public folder, we src folder, we added libraries, installed npm. Later, I will show you manually how to create a project also. At the end, we will see how to create a complete React application from the scratch. That means everything we will set up. We will not take help of any library. That means we will not take help of any tool. We will build everything manually. We will add the file. We will write the setting. Then you will understand, okay, this is the flow. That means the flow is understandable to the architects, not to the developers. Developers are different, architects are different. That means in real-time projects, you are a Java developer, you are a .NET developer, you are a PHP Python developer, you are a web developer, you are not architects. That means what is your job? Already the infrastructure of project is built, on that you have to work. What is your job? Working on a project. Who built that infrastructure of that project? Architects. Java architects will be there. .NET architects will be there. We usually call them as consultants and all, right? Consultants are used for supporting team, and we have an architect team. The job of this architect team is build the project for you, set up the infrastructure for you. You are, after all, a developer just working in it. That means you will be never responsible for building a project. You will be responsible always for working in a project. You will not build a project. That is not your job. That is an expert architect team who will design the infrastructure. Where which file should be there, from where which file should be accessed, everything, path, configurations, everything is designed by architects. And people who are in the role of architects, they know this. And these kind of architectures are not very much good or impressive for a fresher to explain all this, because he will be get confused. He will be get confused, and he don't need to know also all these things. That's the reason many people will not try to explain all this to you, because that is not required at certain level, generally at fresher level. But when you put lot of experience behind your technologies, then these kind of questions will come. What is diff mechanism? What is bootstrapping? Which event is used by browser to load the pages? What is the order of loading and React application? These all are so experience level questions. So you should know these technical terms, how this is going to happen, right? I hope you are clear with this. But this is only second level. Now the question here is how the component loads again. So you said that component will load. How component will load? Now what is the architecture behind loading the component? How a component loads? That means how it is requested, how it will render. What is the architecture behind loading the component? That is the third level. So this I will save. This is our level 2 architecture. So I will upload these 2 files today, all these 3 files today into the classroom. Okay. Now you saw the high level flow. After that, now you saw internally how it happens. Now let's see how it loads a component. That means how it is going to load the component. That means what is the basic process in loading a component. That means what you done here, let's say. So this is the browser. And in the browser, you are requesting which one? So http:/localhost and 3000, which one? Login. So in the browser, you are requesting this. Okay. Fine. I'm requesting this in the browser. Now the question is how this login component is loaded. What are the phases of this login component? So up to how login component loads, we learned. That means up to login component request we learned. Now how login component will load? What is the first phase? Actually, generally what happens is whenever a component is requested, the first phase is, so React creates. So what React will do is it will React creates an object. It creates an object for component. It creates an object for component. That is the first step. Whenever a component is requested, React creates an object for the component. Every component is not directly rendered. First, what will happen? It will create an object for that component. So it is going to create an object for the component. For every component, an object is created. For example, you are using class components or function components. So an object will be created. You can have a reference now. For example, it is nothing but suppose we are having a class called login. Now, how you can access this login? Through an object only. How you'll access? Through an object. You need an object. Through an object only you can access a class, right? So we are currently discussing about what? Class components, life cycle of class components. Function components, directly a function will load. Currently we are discussing about class life cycle. Na? So it is not function life cycle. Function life cycle is different. That I will show another part. This is class related life cycle hooks we are learning. That means up to the flow of 1 and 2, class function both are same. Here change. If it is class component, then what will happen? If it is function component, what will happen? Both we will see. If it is class component, what is the first phase? A class cannot load directly. A class will not directly be accessible. A class requires what? Object. That means React creates an object for the component. It creates an object for the component. So after creating an object for the component, so what will happen is an object is created. Okay. After creating the object, what is the next phase? So, and now tell me, who is responsible for creating this object? Constructor. A constructor is responsible for creating the object. That means who is responsible for creating this object? React creates an object for component. So what is that? So that means by using constructor. That means a constructor is responsible for doing that. A constructor is responsible for doing this. That means every class component have a constructor. That constructor is responsible for creating an object for your component class. That is the first stage. Now tell me, what are the activities performed in the constructor? That means what are the activities performed at the time of constructing an object for a component class? You learned already some activities performed at the time of constructing. What are those? At the time of constructing an object for that component class, what is the first thing happens is order. First thing is we use super constructor. Na? That means what is the first phase? First phase is it implements all the features of the base component. That means what is the first phase? First phase is, so at the time of constructing, it implements base class. It implements, here we call super class. It implements super class. That is the first phase. That means while constructing an object for a derived class, first it will implement the super class. That is the first phase. Okay, after that, it will initialize state. It will initialize the state. State is initialized now. Where we initialize the state? In the constructor only. While constructing an object for that class, we are initializing. Not only that, properties also initialize. Yesterday we learned every class component have properties. These properties are derived from the parent. That means you have properties and you have state. Both are initialized at the time of constructing. You can access by using this dot state. You can access by using this dot props. So properties are initialized and state is initialized and superclass members are implemented here. That is the first phase, superclass. Can you initialize properties and state before you implement the superclass? No, it cannot happen because they come from superclass. Order is also important. If you initialize state above super, then it will not work. Already we know that order also, right? Now tell me what else will happen. What else will happen here? Anything else you done in constructor? Binding events we done. Na? That means what it will do is it binds the events to current class. Bind events to the current class. It is going to bind the events to current class. It is going to bind events to the current class. So why you need to bind events to the current class? If you don't bind the events to the current class, those events cannot use the current state. If events have to use the current state, we have to bind them to the current class. And for that, we use this mechanism. Okay, this is all happening in the constructor. That means at the time of constructing an object for that component, so whenever a component is requested, first step, an object is created because it's a class. And class needs an object. Through an object only you can access it. So an object is created. And while creating object, it will implement the super members. It will initialize the state. It will initialize the properties. It will bind the events to the current class so that they can start using the state, right? After that, after this, what will happen is the second phase is so React uses mount phase. React uses a mount phase. React uses a mount phase. That means after the constructor is created, what is the next phase? Mount. This mount phase, so it uses a mount phase for component. And in this mount phase is actually maintained. It is maintained by two methods will maintain this. One is component will mount, component will mount, and the component did mount, will mount, did mount. Before mounting, after mounting. That is the activities actually. Component will mount and did mount. And now tell me, what are the activities performed in this phase? Already created. Component is already created. So what is the next phase? Component memory is also allocated. Constructor is doing na? Constructor is doing what? Allocating memory. That is what object will do. Object is what? New constructor. New constructor means memory is allocated already. Memory is allocated for component while constructing itself. That is also done. What we have done in mount phase, what will happen in the mount phase? In mount phase, it can assign values into state. It can assign values into state. And in mount phase, it can access and use the properties. That means state is assigned and properties are configured. Properties are initialized. Now we can use the properties. We can access the properties. So what is the first here? What happens in the mount phase? Mount phase is a state can be assigned. State can be assigned, or you can say state is assigned. State is assigned with the values. You can assign state with values. Props are used by component. Properties will be used by the component, where to render which property. Properties are initialized and now properties are used. Next what? Next what will happen? State will be assigned with values. That's okay. Properties will be used by the component. That's okay. What is next? What will happen in this phase? In the mount phase. Actually, what will happen in the mount phase is events. Events are subscribed. Events are subscribed. So events are subscribed to relative methods. Subscribed to relative methods. That means a connection between the event and method is established, because events have to use methods. When you say on click, what should happen? When you say on click, what should happen? A click method should fire up. How a method will fire up? What is the connection between them? That means actually methods are loaded into memory. How events will connect to those methods? That means actually they use a technique called, generally we use a technique called name location mapping. I told you, I think, that is, we call that mechanism as model binding. In software technologies, for example, I will tell you one example. Means it's a general thing usually. Suppose in software technology, suppose we say function, we have insert click like this. Now what happens here? So button. So in this button, what is it? On click, which one? Insert click. Now we are saying that when you click the button, this function will execute. How it will execute? Is there any wire connected between them? Then how? Is there any wire? Right? If there is a wire, then I pull it, then it will vibrate there. Right? So, and how it is doing that? How it is executing it? In software technologies, all this happens by using a mechanism called model binding. In model binding, name location mapping is done. That means which name you use, where you keep, that matters. That means you saw when we added JSON file, when we added images, we added in a public folder. If we keep it in any another folder, it don't work. Why? Because the mapping is done to that particular source location. And the name and resource mapping is called as model binding. That means where you keep it, which name you give, this all matters. A software technology maps, it uses a binary mapping technique. By using that mapping technique, it will verify the same name is there in the same scope it is there. If it is outside the scope, it can't. Should be in the same scope. It should be in the same reference. Then name mapping will be done. And due to that mapping, it is going to execute. This mapping will be done at the time of mounting. While mounting a component, the methods are registered. So with the events, you learned now what is event meaning, event definition. Event is a message sent by sender to its subscriber. That means the subscription of events should be done in order to trigger the events. And how, when events will subscribe? At the time of mount. At the time of mounting, events will be subscribed. They will subscribe the events. So subscribing events will be done, right? Next, what is the next thing is in the mount phase, what will happen? In the mount phase, actually one more thing will happen. This is related to our all components, even function components also. Another one is actually context is created for component. Context is created for component. What is context? Context is created for component. Context is nothing but the memory of current component which can be shared with the child components, which can be shared with the child components. If it can be done, then only you can pass data to child. We learned controlled and uncontrolled components. That means the context is also created. But these are explicit. That means internally it is not, but majority context will be created explicitly at the time of what? Mount. Not only the context, application state is created. Application state is also created at the time of mount. At the time of mount, application state is created. We learned now reducer. Reducer will use an application state so that you can access the data from any component. Component related this. But these two are optional actually. I will just mark them in a different way because why they are optional? Because they are not every time required. So, but every time what will happen is state is defined with values, properties are used, and events are subscribed to the relative methods. All this will happen in the mount phase. Right? Next, important, after the mount phase, then we have another phase. So we have another phase here. I need to expand a little bit. Yeah. So what is another phase is we have an update phase now. After the mount phase, so we have a React users update phase. It uses an update phase. React uses an update phase. Actually, here one more is done before this actual, let's say. So what will be done here is generally what happens is after the mounting. Yeah. this is mount phase happened, and I will shift this little up. Yeah. Now what happens is here, after the mount has been done, there will be one concept, and this is nothing but this is render. Render means what? Rendering is the process of generating the output. It is generating the output. Now what happens is after the mount phase, the render will fire up. Because after mounting, that means the result is ready. That render will happen and the output will be generated. That means the output will be generated. That means now user can see what your component is having. That is the render phase. In the render phase, user can see what is in your component. That means you have a button, you have a text box, you have some environment, everything user can see. That is the render phase. Now what happens is after rendering, now user will do some modification. He clicked a button or he changed some value into that. That means what happens is in the UI, this UI rendered. After UI rendered, what will happen after the user interface is rendered? Here, some interactions will happen. That means user will handle some interactions like button click, drop down change, text box change, some interactions will happen. When interactions will happen, then which phase will fire up now? So it fires up another phase. What is that phase? When interactions will happen, it is going to fire up the phase. Which one? Update. Update phase. This phase is maintained. This phase is maintained by the method. We have a method called component did update. We have component did update is a method. Actually, earlier we used to have so many more methods because classes are outdated now. We don't use some of those methods also removed. Actually, it used to use a component will update also. Component will update, but these all methods are outdated. That means they are not recommended to use, but still we are learning because for the sake of old versions, right? So here these two will happen. Now tell me what will happen in update phase. On update phase, that means, so on update phase, what is going to happen? One primary thing you learned that React uses only one-way binding. And two-way binding requires one special event. What is that event? On change. So what will happen now when update? How it knows that it should update? That means what it is going to do is on update phase, it is going to trigger the event. Trigger the events. First event will trigger because without event triggering, nothing will happen. That means how you know that some change happened? User will click some button, user will type something, user will select something, and all this is recognized by whom? Events. That means it will trigger the events. That means events are subscribed in which phase? Events are subscribed in which phase? Mount. Events are executed in which phase? Update. In update phase, events will execute. That means event will trigger. So when event is triggered, actually memory allocated for event. Because event returns some results. Those results need to, event is a method, na? Event is using a method. Method related functionality should be managed in a memory. That means a memory is allocated for every event. On click, on change, on blur, for every event, some memory is allocated. That means it will trigger the events, memory is allocated for the events, and results are computed. So, and results are stored. results are stored in memory. Results are computed, calculations will happen. It will store finally results in the memory. This all happens in which phase? Update. All kinds of events are executed, results are computed, and it will do this. And remember, what will happen is after performing all this, whatever the final result will be there, that will be rendered again. That means after update, again a render phase will come. After update, again render phase will come. That means render will happen 2 times. What is the first time? First time is after mounting. After mounting, it will update. It will render. After modifications, it will render again. That means whatever the changes are there, it will update those changes. Update those changes. And once it is done, and one more important phase is there. What is another phase here? And the phase is react. We have a react unmount phase. React unmount phase. And remember, you already learned this in the function concept. So when a component will unmount, it is maintained by component. Component will unmount. Unmount is the method. Component unmount method is going to maintain this here. Now tell me, what are the activities performed? First, you tell me when unmount will happen. We discussed unmount in use effect concept. No? When unmount will happen, when a component will unmount. The component will unmount when a user is changing from one component to another. You request a new component, the old component will unmount and the new component will mount. That means now what happens in this unmount phase? What are the activities performed here? So what are the activities performed in this unmount phase? First important, the activities performed in this unmount phase is state is destroyed. State is destroyed. That is the first thing happens. State is destroyed. That means actually whatever the state is created, state is destroyed. That is the reason that state of one component is not accessible to another. State is destroyed. And next, what will happen? Events are unregistered. You can say events are unsubscribed. Subscribed is done at the time of mount. At the time of unmount, it will unsubscribe the events. That means it will disconnect the events. That's the reason once the unmount happens, events will not work anymore because the events are disconnected. And once events are disconnected, memory allocated for event is cleaned up. It is cleaned up. That means the memory allocated for event is cleaned up. And not only that, the memory allocated for component. So component is removed. That is the reason we call this as stateless. Stateless, why? Because the memory allocated for one component is not accessible to another, because it is automatically destroyed when the component is finished. This is the unmount phase. And unmount phase can happen in 2 ways. One, you close the app, or you move from one component to the another component. So this is actually the component related cycle. So component have 3 phases. What are those 3 phases? Mount, unmount, and update. Mount, update, and unmount. Even you see, these are all internal process, how it actually works. Suppose you see, let's say, I will show you here, React component life cycle. Means we are using React component lifecycle. So React component lifecycle, we will take it from the official website. You see, this is the official website of React people. It is in the React official website, their documentation. Let's open this. This is the state and life cycle of React officially from the React life cycle. And the component life cycle architecture. Where is that architecture? This is all architecture. Component life cycle hooks. Official website will have a diagram about it. Diagram we will use, yeah. Yeah, this is the official component lifecycle hook diagram you will find in the official website also, if it is still there. These are all medium related, yeah. Okay, I will show you the official, you in their website, you can find it actually. Component lifecycle hook methods. Means we don't want other websites. We are looking for legacy. In this, they have only one concept. Component properties are there. Life cycle diagrams. So they change. The official there, the diagram will be there actually. Component life cycle diagram they give somewhere it is there. Later you check that. I will show their official diagram how they look like. We have an official diagram. Presentation is there. Yeah. This is the component life cycle diagram actual. Component life cycle. Actually, this is the official life cycle diagram of theirs. In their official website, you will find this. That means official website of React will show you this component life cycle. And what are those phases here? So mounting constructor, but actually this is not a correct one completely because actual constructor comes before mounting. Right? That is not. Obviously, React people itself say that we have a poor documentation. Right? So that means React don't have a complete proper document. This is what only they have a diagram in their website about cycle. And in this only three phases are there. What are those? Mounting phase, update phase, and unmount phase. And after mounting, it will render. After updating, it will render. And finally, one phase is what? Unmount. Now, even an learner or any developer, even they have 4 or 5 years experience in software development, obviously they will get an idea to learn from their official website. And in official website also only this will be there. But when they attend interviews with 5, 6 years experience, they will get questions like what will happen in constructor, which even official website don't provide that. This. That means people who say that they are experienced, that means they have seen all this manually. That is the reason they know that. Even their website don't mention, their application don't show anything, but we know that that is how it works internal. That is where they can identify that, oh, you are genuine experience or just work experience. Work experience is nothing but you worked for a company for years is not experience. Experience. How much you know about the infrastructure, architecture, that is experience. That is the reason experience level React interviews little bit complicated. Architectural related, so many questions will come. Freshers, no need to do. For fresher, just need to know that very important because architecturally, internally, these all will happen. This is level 3. Level 3. I hope you are clear, right? So you understood the flow, how the React application works. Now, once we know this, now we are good with all this. Now we will learn into a very major concept is about routing. We will learn about routing. That means how to build a real single page application. Single page application. That means navigation, how it works. Then we can shift to TypeScript. Once we know about routing, then we will go to TypeScript. So to this, we will see in next session tomorrow. Don't miss the sessions for 1-2 days related to routing because this is the primary thing in React. React application completely depends on routing. So navigation, everything depends on this routing. This is very, very important concept that we'll see tomorrow. Okay, tomorrow we'll continue with this.